Michigan at the moment? I saw you were
Yeah.
up in Canada maybe or something like that, but
Yeah. I hadn't, I mean, I live in, or I'm from Canada originally. Um, but I hadn't been there in like a year because of all this COVID crap. And I was like, I'm just going to try and go. And I did. And they let me over. They read me on the Canadian side. It was pretty funny because on the Canadian side, they read me all these like quarantine rules and like how I could get like charged $1 million and like go to jail. Like it was
jeez.
insane. I'm like, this is like beyond insane to me. And then when I was coming back was what I was kind of worried about because I have a working visa here, but not technically a citizen yet.
Okay.
So on the way back I was like, oh, this, I'm like nervous. I'm not going to get back. But it was easier getting to the States than it was Canada.
Really?
Yeah. Like technically they can't deny me in Canada because I'm a Canadian citizen. But as far as talking about COVID and like all of that stuff, it was completely different on the US side, which I was surprised by.
Yeah, so am I. That's shocking.
Yeah.
Which part
Yeah.
of Canada are you from? I grew up in Pennsylvania, like on the New York state line, south of Buffalo. So like for
Okay.
me, going to Niagara Falls was kind of
Yeah.
like a yearly thing. So
Mhm.
Canada was close, but I know
Right.
it's
Yeah, so I'm from Ontario. I'm close to Toronto.
okay.
So where I lived in Canada is about an hour away from Detroit in Michigan.
Okay.
So I can just go back and forth. It's about like 45 minutes for me to get there.
Yeah, there was a couple times early in my high school years where we took a trip to Niagara Falls. It was like early on before things really got crazy with the borders and all of that. And
Yeah.
it was like, hey, let's go to Canada and let's go drink.
Yeah.
You know,
I
it
think
was
that's the
kind of like,
only reason I've been there too, is just to like go hit the wineries and stuff.
yeah. Now, so I know there's a lot that I want to talk to you about. I came actually, I think I had followed you for a while just because I'm into health and fitness, and you were somebody who, if anybody doesn't know, you were quite like the savage from a CrossFit competitor standpoint. I know you went through some injuries,
Mhm.
um, but I saw you again. I think Cam Hanes like reposted a video of you shooting a bow across a pool, and I
Yeah.
just remember being like, "Look at this chick like firing the bow across." And then I'm like, wait, I think that I followed her before. And
Yeah.
then I had written it down. I'm like, you know what? I'm going to reach out to her and have her on the podcast. It slipped my mind a couple times, but so
Yeah.
you hunt? Like I didn't realize. I looked back through and I saw more photos of you in like camo and stuff out in the woods.
Mhm. I actually just took it up this year. My boyfriend has been doing it since he was like 12. And so he's huge into it. And so he's like, I want to get you going this year. So we went and got me a bow and I just fell in love with it instantly. Just even from like a therapeutic standpoint, it was like a therapy for me to just go out there and shoot the bow. Um, and like he was teaching me and like I was getting the hang of it, doing really good shooting at a target, right? Then I get out in the woods and we're like hunting and like it's such a cool experience. It's crazy.
Yeah.
Um, do you hunt?
So I've hunted. I did early on, not bow. I was like a rifle, deer, squirrel type person,
Okay.
and then
Yeah.
sports like took over my life. So
Right.
I didn't have time to devote towards it. It was kind of cool, and where I grew up, there was a delineation. There were some athletes who also hunt, but
Hmm.
there was kind of like the hunters and then the athletes.
Right.
And I was friends with a lot of them. I just didn't do it a whole lot, and when the big craze around bow hunting, I started following Cam Hanes. I'm a big Joe Rogan podcast listener.
Me
And
too.
so I'm like, let me see what this is all about. And I had a friend that introduced it to me a little bit, showed me a couple things. And then I was like you, I was hooked. I was like, I got to go grab a
Yeah.
bow. I got myself all fitted. And I've got a small little 2 acre plot here of land, but it's kind of like a cool backyard where I've got a couple areas I have some 3D targets set up. And
Oh, nice.
to your point, just going outside and just shooting a pattern and being like, okay, meditation,
Oh, yeah.
concentration. It's one of the only times that, and I play the guitar. It's the same
Yep.
kind of thing for me. It's like I'm so singularly focused on what I'm doing that it
Yeah.
allows me to take the ADD that I'm usually walking
Yes.
around with
Me
and like
too.
smush it down.
Yeah. It's
Now,
like it puts you in that flow state,
yeah.
it feels like, right? And that's what I love so much about it. Until you get out in the woods. Like I mean, I was writing a post on it the other day that I was gonna post, and it was basically saying how I've never done anything in my life that has brought me like so much tranquility but chaos at the same time, and like that's why I love it so much.
Hmm.
um I got out there and I was like, this is crazy, like just the whole experience. And you got to have, you're right, like you have to have time to do it. It's a very time consuming thing, like you're out there for like 12 hours at a time, sometimes longer.
Hmm.
um so I think it was like our third time hunting, and this buck comes and like your heart rate is just going crazy. I'm trying to like calm myself down and just breathe. But I pull back, and it's like everything I learned went out the window. I'm like, where's my people? Like, like I couldn't get anything right, and then I missed the deer. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I was so upset, but it was like just the crazy experience of my life. Like my legs went weak, I like couldn't breathe.
Hmm.
And it's like as soon as you feel that, it's like I need to stay in the woods forever. I just want to be here forever.
Yeah, there's some people that might scare off a little bit,
Mhm.
but I'm with you. Like the challenge and the consequences. I think that's a big part of it too. It's like I've done hard things and I've gotten nervous before
Mhm.
things, but for me, the consequences have never been like, okay, like I get hurt, or if it's a
Right.
presentation, maybe somebody doesn't like what I'm telling them, but there's the consequences are just
I know.
measly compared to wounding an animal and
Right.
making it run away. So I think there's a part of that too. But
Right.
no, I know
I was
I
almost
know that.
happy I missed. Like in a sense, I was like, well, I would have rather missed than like wound it, hit it in the wrong spot. So, but it's, yeah, totally.
Mhm.
It's a crazy experience.
Yeah, my brother just got a deer with a rifle. He went out bow hunting with his father-in-law, and he told me he didn't tell me at first. He told me after he shot a deer with a rifle. He's like, it was actually closer than the one that I missed with a bow. And I'm like, wait, what are you talking about? He's like, oh, you don't even understand. He's like, this buck came running in towards me, and it overwhelmed me, like kind of got him all excited. And
Yeah.
we were supposed to go on an elk hunt. We were going to go to the
Okay.
St. Joe's National Forest in Idaho. So it's a very
Right.
dense part of public land. Because I'm just the type of person, I'm like, hey, I've been shooting this bow religiously for like a year and a half. We're going to go public land hunt because that's what nobody else would do. Like, let's just go all in and do this. And I was shooting, and one day just felt a pop in my shoulder and was like, uh-oh, like what is that? And it was definitely from a prior injury and just shoulder
Um,
problems and things that I had, but I had a small labrum tear. And I mean, I say that with like, you dealt with way more, but it was
yeah.
kind of a similarity that took that a bit. I couldn't pull the bow back, couldn't really do that, so I had to take some
Wow.
time off, kind of put a kibosh on our trip out west, and then COVID hit like right after that. So
Right.
in a way, I don't know if we would have been able to go anyways, but I know I've been able to start shooting again for the last month and a half. And
That's good.
so definitely hoping the snow stays off the ground. It stays warm enough where I can go out and get like serious practice in, because I'm pumped to
Mhm.
get somewhere out west and have that experience.
Yeah. Is this season is it still in season right now for you guys?
Not for archery.
Okay.
For like rifle, I'm trying to think. I know I think there's a couple more days. I saw some friends of mine posting some buck that they had shot
Yeah.
recently. So
Yeah.
it's and then I'm like I said, I'm kind of close to New York State. So a lot of times those seasons are like a week and then it
Right.
overlaps. So then you kind of get like another week in the next state.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I need to get more into it. I don't have as many hobbies these days.
Yeah.
My wife may say differently, but um,
Yeah.
he's like, you need to find a couple things to get rid of and stop doing instead of just always finding more things to do. But
Yeah.
I'm just so afraid of what that leads
Yeah.
to, you know? So
In pulling the bow back within a shoulder, I couldn't imagine. That was one thing I was thinking about a lot actually when I started into bow hunting was I was like, wow, if I didn't take care of my shoulders like I did, like I wouldn't have been able to do this. There's no way.
Yeah. So we don't have to spend a whole lot of time there, but I know you I mean, you had devastating injuries to your
Hmm.
shoulders. Maybe if you could, you started in CrossFit 2013, 14. Is that right time frame?
So 2013, 14 was basically when I started competing.
Okay.
I was doing it for years before that, just kind of building my foundation. But 2014 or 2013, I went to regionals on a team. And then 2014, I decided to go individual, and that's when everything kind of blew up. Like I went to regionals and ended up placing third that year, but that's when things were still kind of, they were only taking two from Canada East that year. So in the grand scheme, like at the end of the day, like was like, I think I was like 10th overall in the world, but not going to the games. It was just crazy. So they changed the whole layout of it. And the next year I was training, like, made it to regionals, but 4 weeks out, I was out in Vermont training with Matt Frazier and I ruptured my Achilles.
Oh,
And then, yeah, so it was just like a bunch of things happened like right after another. So I came back from that recovery was really good, to be honest with you. It was probably about like half a year and I was like back doing everything. And then I switched coaches. I moved out to California and I made it to the regionals out in California. And on the first event, it was a snatch ladder. And I was on my very last snatch and snatched it. The bar fell behind my back and I just heard like, like all
oh,
this popping. And I was like, oh my gosh, like it hurt really bad. But I'm out there, like I've got all this adrenaline. I mean, I'm coming back from an old injury. I'm like, this can't be happening, right?
yes.
So I go again, snatch again, and whole bunch of popping again. Um, so I was pretty overtrained at that point. There was a lot going on hormonally with me, but I couldn't like lift my shoulders or anything like that. So I ended up going and getting some, just seeing some surgeons and getting surgery on both of my shoulders. So they said I had labrum tears on both my shoulders, like full slap tears.
Mm.
And then I started my recovery process out in California, and it was like 4 months later, and I just felt like I wasn't recovering. Like things just weren't feeling good at all. And so I went and saw a doctor in Cleveland, and he was like, yeah, you have like complete rotator cuff tears. Like, and if you don't get these fixed, like you won't have any function in your shoulders when you're older. And I'm like, what?
That's
Excuse me?
insane.
Like, how does that happen? Like, did they just miss it in the first surgeries? So he was like, yeah, like they must have missed it. Because something like that, the way he explained it was that has to come from almost like a traumatic experience, basically. And I was like, well, let's go, I guess. So I ended up having to do two more on my shoulders, or each shoulder. So it was about a 3-year recovery for me.
Did they do those separate or?
Yeah. So the first ones were pretty close together, like couple weeks apart. I think they were just too close together. I was like super sick. It was pretty bad. And then those two were around like 6 weeks apart.
Man,
Yeah.
that's so a 3-year recovery. I mean, did
Mhm.
you at that point in time just tell yourself, like, were you thinking like CrossFit's done? I'm not competing ever again. I got to try to find a new journey in life.
Yeah, it was a serious like roller coaster of emotions. I did not think I was going to get back to where I was, but I had people telling me that I would. So the doctor told me I could. So he was like the first person, which I was shocked about. I'm
Yeah.
like, he's like, like you can get back to, where you were. And then I worked with a company called Active Life, and they built out a very meticulous plan for me, but it was like a 2-3 year plan, right? Um, but throughout those years, it was just like up and down and up and down. So it was like really hard for me to believe I would get back. But I just kept showing up. Like I really just kept showing up for myself. It's what I wanted. I mean, I remember the first day I started CrossFit, I had a goal of making it to the CrossFit Games, and I just really never lost sight of that. And then when I got the taste of like almost being there so many times, that's what kept bringing me back when I was going through my recovery. It was like, I deserve to be there. Like, I know I can be there. And so I just kept that in the back of my head and I just kept showing up. Um, and I eventually did get back on the competition floor.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
What's your athletic journey prior to CrossFit? Were you in gymnastics? Were you in
Mhm.
dance or something like that? Or
Yeah. So growing up, I was in gymnastics. So I was an elite gymnast. Yeah. So that created a very solid foundation for me for a lot of things. Um, and then after gymnastics, I played some travel soccer, and then I did some martial arts like Taekwondo.
okay.
And then I found CrossFit, and it was like, that was it. But gymnastics was definitely like the transition from gymnastics to CrossFit that helped me so much.
Yeah, I would imagine, especially from a competitive
Yeah.
standpoint too, right? Because
Yeah.
it's like I've ne- I've done a lot of things. I've done CrossFit style workouts. I've never gotten involved in like an actual CrossFit program.
Hmm.
And for me, I've dealt with just nagging injuries, and my excuse, it was probably more of an excuse, was just like CrossFit looks like it'll break me down, and I just, I have a hard time staying healthy going to the Y with a couple of my lifting buddies sometimes. And I don't think that was like a fair assessment. I'm sure a lot of it was more just me creating an excuse to not do something that I just didn't have a huge desire to do. But
Hmm.
is there, I mean, you mentioned being overtrained. Now you're at like the elite level of that. That was always the criticism that I heard, that was like the competition aspect of moving weights can create some dangerous aspects, i.e., having
Yeah.
a bar fall behind you and tear your shoulders, right?
Yes. Yeah. I think like um CrossFit, it gets a bad rep because there is a lot of gyms out there who don't prioritize quality over quantity first and creating a foundation for their clients or whoever it is. And so that's when CrossFit can become dangerous in a sense. I mean, every sport can be dangerous, but you're doing these very high technical movements, you're doing them under time. And if you don't create that foundation first and really focus on the quality of those movements, the risk just jumps. Um, so from that, I mean, from you being someone who's like, high risk of injury, it would be so essential for you to focus on, the foundations and the quality of the movement first. And that takes time. And that's what people don't want to do, is they just want to like jump in and, be part of it. And so
Yes.
that's when CrossFit can become an issue as far as like injuries. Um, but also the overtraining thing, right? Like the the top athletes, um, most of them have it dialed in, to be honest with you. Like their lives revolve around that sport, from sleep to food. Like every hour of their day is revolving around CrossFit and, their goals in CrossFit. When it comes to the gem pop, and I think social media becomes a problem here because they see these athletes like doing so much and, training like 2 times a day and all of that, and they don't have the time or the resources to completely wrap their whole life around this. And so they're doing a ton of training, and then they're really stressed outside of the gym, or they're not eating enough, they're not fueling themselves right. And then that's when it becomes an issue for overtraining, or like if you want to call it under recovering for the general pop. I literally posted about this yesterday. Like, I don't necessarily think it's like CrossFit is the issue. It's the under recovering, the under eating, the stress that comes with it for the general pop.
That makes sense to, especially your kind of perspective on social media, because it's the aspect of the sport that's not like cool to be putting on a story or on your posts.
Right.
So it's like, okay, I'm going to prioritize going and busting tail for an hour and a half, but I'm not going to warm up properly. I'm not going to be eating
Mhm.
the right type of diet. I'm not going to get my body worked on, whether it's massage or chiropractic
Right.
work and all those things that allow you to do it, unless you're living it. And to your point, the
Right.
people at the top,
Exactly. Yeah.
they're doing that.
Yeah, I deal with a lot of like, I see it a lot with female clients. It does happen with male clients too, but I deal with a lot of female clients who just have run into like a ton of hormonal issues, like thyroid issues from exactly what I talked about. And they're not, competitive CrossFit athletes. They're just, people who do it for exercise, but it's coupled with like eating at like 1400 calories and a really stressful life, and then not, depending on where they are and where they're training, like maybe that gym isn't prioritizing creating that foundation or creating or focusing on quality over quantity. Like I don't think that someone should be doing kipping pull-ups until they can do a strict pull-up, for example. Like you
Mhm.
have to create that foundation first.
Now, I mean, so we're talking 10, how long is the games been, is like the competitive aspect of CrossFit been going on? Is it like 10 or 15 years now?
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's like 2007 maybe.
Okay. Is
Yeah.
there, I mean, obviously like the top highest of the highest level people, you hear Rich Frohning's name, people like that, like financially, I'm sure killing it.
Yeah.
Um, is there a structure? Because I would imagine, I'm like, I guess what I'm trying to think is like the top peak of people who have the financial ability to do
Mhm.
that. Is there more people competing in CrossFit at a high level who don't really have that financial ability to manage their day-to-day lives in an ease that somebody who at the top, or has it matured enough as a sport where, yeah, there may be some variance between those people, but there's still a pathway for them to not have to go take a full-time job somewhere else to support themselves. I mean, kind of that similar track with
Yeah.
MMA,
Like,
right? Where you have guys that are, on the undercard of a UFC fight and then they go and
right.
work at a Rite Aid. And it's
Mhm.
like, well, how can they ever expect to continue to grow at the rate of somebody who's
Right.
living this because they're supported by sponsors and,
Yeah.
the pay?
Yeah, well, the new layout of CrossFit has actually made it more so where someone who isn't necessarily at the top can make a pretty decent living off of it. Yes. There's a new layout where it's sanctional, so they have like these competitions like all over the place. So you see people going and competing um all over the place and making money and then gaining sponsors, and so there is that place for that, but the downfall of it is that you have to be competing more, and so you can't, it's, I mean, as far as health of your body in general, you can't be competing all the time. But I mean, I guess if you want to look at it that way, yes, there is, more room for someone who isn't necessarily like making it top 5 at the games to make money off of it. Yes.
No, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Think anyway, I it's like such the topic of conversation,
Mhm.
and probably because we live in a world where everybody's able to now manifest their own incomes through different
Yep.
streams. And so then,
Totally.
I mean, people who are putting their health on the line, whether you're competing in
Hmm.
CrossFit or going out and fighting in a cage or boxing or
Mhm.
baseball. I mean, you see the money that the top three sports make, and it's like, holy shit.
I know.
And and
Yeah.
I mean, you sit down, you're like, okay, well, they generate a lot of revenue. So, like, how much money is a professional baseball game bringing in? Just one, they just think there's 162 games in a season. One game, how much money is that stadium bringing in? You start to be able to
Right.
then parse out how you can afford to pay somebody,
Yeah.
40, $50 million a year.
Hmm.
It's like,
Yeah.
you got guys and girls that are getting in and putting their life on the line and putting on a lot of risk, and they make a micro fraction of that.
Right. I know. Yeah.
Oh, interesting. So now you do some training, like personal training for people, health training.
Yeah, so well, just on the nutrition side right now.
Okay,
Yep. Yep.
got it. Yeah, it kind of actually bridges to something I wanted to mention. So I saw, are dealing with some gut health things.
Yeah. Yeah.
Really resonates with me.
Yeah.
For the last couple of years, I've been struggling with something that I can't really get answers on completely, manifesting into skin conditions. I've had some like literally like welts that have, manifested on my head, that everything kind of points back to an inflamed intestinal tract or
Yep.
stomach.
Yep.
Um, just a sense of like anxiety in my gut when I really shouldn't. But
Yeah. I have
uh,
the same thing.
yeah, and I was curious. I mean, you're just starting a journey on this. I'd love for you to kind of maybe explain a little bit of what that
Yeah.
entails. And are you drawing comparisons between, past obstacles that you've had to overcome? Because
Oh yeah.
some people I think get it when I tell them my guts, it's just not right, and it impacts you on a day-to-day basis, sometimes worse depending on how you're feeling. But other
Oh
people,
yeah.
I think they're like, oh well, that's just a different level. Like there's like physical pain, there's injury, and then like, okay, you don't feel so great. But I'm here, I mean, I'll tell people right now, there's days where I just don't even feel like getting up.
Oh yeah, I know. Me too. Yeah. I'm in the same boat. Um, your gut is literally linked to everything in your body. And so when there is a dysfunction going on there, you're going to feel it within everything. And so people, I don't know if people think it's like woo woo or what, but it's definitely real. I think in Western medicine, it isn't like talked about a lot, or it's, kind of covered up with, antibiotics or like something like that. So with gut problems, I typically say like you kind of have to go into like the Eastern medicine and work with someone kind of holistically on it, which I've done. Did a lot of homework on who I was going to work with. Like I'm a coach, but I needed someone who specializes in this because of, a lot of the things you were saying I have too. And it just was severely impacting the quality of my life. And it's been like this for a few years actually. Um, and it all started when after I had my surgeries. So I remember starting to work with a nutrition coach, and he asked me, it was before I had my surgeries, and he asked me if I had any food intolerances or anything like that. And I was like, nope. Like I'm like I could eat anything, didn't deal with anxiety, like nothing like that. Following my surgeries, I started getting bad skin issues, bloating after eating anything and everything. Um, and then I started getting sick from food, and that progressively got worse and worse and worse and worse, to the point now that if I eat something, like if I go out for dinner, I have to be like super careful, and super picky of what I'm eating. And even then, it can still happen. But if, say, I go out for dinner and I ingest something that doesn't, work with me, I will be bedridden for like days. I've been vomiting, feels like a really intense migraine, foggy brain, cannot concentrate. Like it will completely, I'll have to cancel things on my schedule, calls, things like that. And so this was just happening like more and more and more. And then it was showing up like with fatigue during my days for no apparent reason. Like from a caloric standpoint, I was eating like 2,500 calories a day. So from that standpoint, like I was fine. I had pulled back on training, wasn't, overdoing it like I was whatsoever. Um, and so it was just like all of this stuff didn't make sense. I was very tired, like I just said. And then anxiety really started like appearing in my life. Um, and I had enough of it. And so I knew that like for years I had focused on my hormonal health, um, and got really far with that because I mean those were in the dumps too. But the thing is like hormones and gut are intertwined. Like you cannot, fix one without the other. Until I started really learning about gut stuff, I made that correlation and just realized like I don't have the tools to fix myself. So um, I had been watching this practitioner on Instagram for a long time and actually talked to people who worked with her and said it was like a life-changing experience for them. So I hired her to help me to figure out what's going on with these issues. So I started working with her 2 weeks ago. And the first initial part of all of this was to do this detoxification process. And it was like it was really nerve wracking for me because as a coach, when I hear the word detox, I'm like, no, 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 like we're not doing no detox, right? Because it has like a negative stigma around it about people who do detoxes because they've overdone it on the weekend and then they want to fast for like 48 hours because they feel guilty.
Easy fix.
Yeah, right, exactly. Like this is no easy fix, right? So um we've started in this detoxification process, which looks like 3 weeks. It's 21 days. I can't work out, so just completely have pulled training out. Um, the first 2 days of each week, so starting Sunday night at 6:30 till Wednesday afternoon at 11:30, I'm fasting. Um, which was like really intense for me last week, which was the first week. And then, which I'll kind of talk about in a minute, but then from the day 3 to the last day of the week, you get 2 meals and 2 shakes a day. They're structured meals. Um, and so it's just like really focusing on giving your gut a break and helping to detox the liver because we really never give ourselves, our gut or our livers a break. And with all, the toxins and processed foods and all of that, the liver's kind of overworking, right? So it's kind of like this stepping stone to what we're going to be doing next. But it's been a really, really interesting experience.
I bet. You
Yeah.
mentioned so I just was curious. I mean, I've had this thought in my head. It's like, as somebody, and I'm not nearly as accomplished as you've been athletically, so I'm assuming you understand and are in tune with your body.
Oh
There's
yeah.
just like a level when you rely on your body for for difficult tasks, you start to understand it. I always used to say like I could one day like bad form, the wrong meal, like I could feel that, and maybe it
Oh
was in
yeah.
my head, but I
Yep.
could feel it. So for me right now, I hear somebody who's just like, oh, I'm tired today, or I'm a little sore, I'm foggy. I would feel guilty saying the same things.
Yep.
But in my head, I was like, I know how optimal feels. I understand that as
Mhm.
somebody who kind of relied on my body for different things. And I also know like, oh, okay, I've had days where I'm a little tired or worn out, sore, didn't feel myself. And that's not what this is. Is that, I mean, am I describing that similarly? Like that you
Yes.
just kind of can
Very
tell?
similar.
Yeah.
Very, very similar. It's not the same.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So fasting, are you allowed to like coffee, water, anything like that? Or is it just straight nothing?
So, no, so no coffee is allowed through this whole process, the 3 weeks of this like detox. I still hate using that word, but whatever. um, so through this whole detox, no coffee, which, okay, coffee, it's not even really the caffeine for me. It's like the ritual of drinking the coffee. I love the taste. So having to take coffee out and have this like ritual in my day at the beginning of my day has been like it threw me for a complete loop at the beginning. I was like, this is making me like my mood was just in the dumps, to be honest with you. Um, so no coffee. I am allowed water and like herbal tea. Um, and then the fasting days just to kind of like not be completely catabolic, we do have shakes, which have like vitamins, minerals, and some electrolytes in it. So you get 4 of those shakes a day. They're spread out like 3.5 hours, but that's it. So the first week, like I felt like, I'm like, how does anyone do this like all the time just because they feel like they need to? I'm like, this is really hard and I feel like trash. Like I couldn't do anything. And then the second day when I woke up, I was like super nauseous, like I was feeling I was gonna vomit. Um, which all of this is normal during the detox period, like low mood, nausea, low energy, all of that. But it was worse than I thought it was gonna be. And then my anxiety actually got really bad last week. Like it was like the highest it's ever been. But I was like talking to my coach, and she's like, you're not just like detoxifying your body, it's like your emotional state too. So these things are going to be exacerbated. And I was like, okay, this makes sense. This makes sense. This week has been a lot better. But the fasting days still like really get me. Um, I went from eating like 2,500 calories to now having like, I don't know, on the fasting days, it's like maybe 400 from the shakes. Um, and then on the food days, probably not too much more. So it's been a pretty big dramatic difference for me.
Mm-hmm. Has your coach mentioned anything about stress and how stress can impact that? Because I saw a dermatologist because of the
Yep.
skin issues, and
Yep.
I'm like, I was actually on vacation. I was down in Hilton Head,
Yep.
and I'm like, I shouldn't. I mean, I'm stressed a little bit, but like life's good. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like I don't have any reason to have this manifestation of like skin condition.
Right.
When I got back, I said, hey, is it possible that, I just feel anxious? Is it stress? And she's like, no, like absolutely not. Stress can't cause rashes. And through all the research that I've done, I'm like,
Oh
there's
yeah.
more nerve endings in your stomach. There's like a ball of nerves in there the
Oh
size of a
yeah.
cat's brain. And
Yeah.
so I'm like, well, that to me contradicts, and I'm not a doctor. So I'm like, I don't want to argue with somebody, but I just, for as matter of fact, as you told me no, I would think that what I'm looking at would maybe give you cause to pause and ask a couple more questions.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Stress um is basically an attack on the gut. So it doesn't matter what kind of stress it is either. It's
Mm.
could be, physical, emotional, any kind of stress. The body can't tell the difference between stressors, right? So that's why going through this process, like I couldn't work out because we're trying to eliminate some of that stress, some of that inflammation, all of that. And so that would have caused more problems for me. So absolutely stress can, show up in your skin. Definitely. The increase in cortisol,
So
that will show up on the skin.
I would imagine then sleep
Yep.
also another big
Oh,
part of that
huge.
then.
Yeah, that's a big
This
one.
that's the one
Yeah.
it's funny. I went to Hawaii on my honeymoon and few like 4 or 5 years ago, and on the way back we stopped in San Francisco, and to kind of make a long crazy story short, I
Mhm.
met this gentleman at the bar um, who, it's crazy, like I had a regular room. I splurged on like a standard room at the JW Marriott. I was trying to be so cool, and we were there for maybe a half an hour. We were starting to unload our bags, and I think my wife had hopped in the shower, and we were going to go to dinner. And we got a knock at the door, and they're like, "Hey, there's a water leak below you. Do you have water running? Like, do you have water in here?" And I'm like, "Well, my wife's in the shower." So we had her stop, and they're like, "Okay, we'll be back. We may need to have you move." Well, they came back and they said, "We're going to move you, but we've got a special room for you." And they took us up to the presidential suite. So I had like this amazing, like $3,000 a night hotel room that overlooked downtown San Francisco, and
Yeah.
it was amazing. And so like we kind of chalked it up to good luck. It's
Yeah.
nice for a honeymoon. But that gentleman that I was talking to was like, "Yeah, I'm here. I work for large technology companies and I stay at this hotel all the time. I was below you. There was water coming into my room. They were going to move me because of my status. And I just said, you know what? I've already got all my stuff hung up in here. Just give it to them and let them have it. And so
Oh,
yeah, it was so cool. Like
yeah,
I like telling people that story because it's like there's good people in the world, right?
absolutely.
But we kind of started talking from that. It like sparked up a conversation, like where are you from? How you doing? And I don't know how we got onto it, but he was talking about sleep and he kind of looked at me and I think about it now, especially tied to like the room and all the weird circumstances, almost as if he was like placed there on purpose for me to have a conversation because he
Oh, I
said,
believe that.
he's like, let me
Yeah.
tell you something. He's like, as you get older, like he brought it up out of nowhere. He's like, sleep is the most important thing. If you ever have health problems, if you ever have mood problems, if you have problems in your relationship, your work performance, before you think of anything, ask yourself, how is your sleep schedule and what you're doing there? And so,
Wow.
it's,
So right.
I think about it all the time, but when you were talking about stress and
Mm.
that how that impacts it, I'm sure that's an area even though he told me that, I need to go back and revisit it more, but
I honestly usually say like sleep is like the foundation to life.
hmm,
Like when your sleep starts lacking, every single part of your life seems to, start to lack. And I see it all the time with clients and even myself. Like I notice um if I have, a crappy night's sleep, my anxiety's high. Just little things like that. I mean, it's sleep to me is the found is sometimes even more, I would say more important than nutrition. I don't want to compare, but like it's so important for all aspects of your life and your health.
yeah, and I think it's one of those things that I don't know what the science behind it is, but early on, like at least for me, I could get by with no sleep, and then it was like there was just a day where you know what I mean, I went to bed and only got 3 hours and I woke up and was like, well, this is new. um
Crazy. Yeah. I have to get like 8 hours
yeah.
or I'm feeling it for sure. I'll feel like all foggy brained if I don't get 8 hours. So yeah.
No, that's 8 hours, man. That just sounds amazing. If I wish at this point, I've got a 15-month-old son, and he makes sure that that doesn't
Oh
happen. But
yeah, it's tough when you're a parent. I mean, there's no real way around that one.
yeah, no, for sure.
Yeah.
Um, so how many more months or how many more weeks is this detox? And then like, what's that protocol after? Is she giving
Yep.
you an outline on how much you're different your life is going to be moving forward, or is it something that you can kind of wean yourself back to
Yeah,
healthy?
no. So this part is just the beginning. So on my social media, people are like, they want to know so much about it and they like think I'm on a diet. I'm like, guys, I'm not on a diet. This isn't a diet. Um, but I'm working with her for 4 months and then depending on like how things go, I might continue to work with her, but it's a 4 month period. And we've done testing. So we're just waiting for those tests to come back. And then depending on what those tests say, then we actually start into like another protocol based off of that. So I don't know how long that will last. But she kind of weans us out of this detox, gets our calories back up in a safe manner. But it all comes down to like this testing. And then there's a lot of like internal work we're doing too. So it's like a lot of emotional stuff, which is very important for this process. So it's a 4 month process. It's no quick fix. With this detox, like things seemed to get a little worse before they got better, but I'm really excited to see how this all rolls out. Like she is so smart. It's unbelievable. She's been doing this for a long time and she takes a very holistic approach to things, which I like, which I do in my coaching. Um, and I believe that's the true way in healing and not just, covering something up with a band-aid, right? You got
Mhm.
to really dig deep and go through the hard stuff to find healing. And so that's what I'm doing with her.
Awesome. What's her name?
Yeah. Taylor Sappington.
Taylor Sappington.
Yeah. You'll have to give her a follow. She posts very, very educational and like posts, and you can learn a ton just by following her.
Definitely. No, I'll just wrote that down.
Hmm.
Um, what about like compounds like CBD or turmeric,
Yeah.
like natural anti-inflammatories?
Yeah, those are great. I actually take CBD at night.
Okay.
I take it, it helps calm me down. I find like I have a really racing mind at night, can't seem to shut my brain off. And CBD has helped me a lot.
Yeah. I,
But yeah, with her, um, based on the testing that we're doing, is where we're going to get the supplements from. Like she's very all about not, just throwing a bunch of supplements at you because they're supplements, right? It's very much coming from the results and then simplifying it with only the specific supplements I need. But supplements like that, like turmeric, CBD, like those are really good for inflammation and the gut. So I recommend those.
yeah, it's fun. You mentioned coffee. So I'm a partner in a coffee company called
Yeah, I
Aktion.
saw that. Yep.
And we started to branch off into some natural supplements, and CBD and turmeric blend being one of them,
Yeah.
partially because of some of the things that I've been dealing with. My partner had some gut problems early on, so turmeric was something that we were kind of looking for, just a natural daily
It's really good.
anti-inflammatory.
Mhm.
Yeah. The
Mhm.
other one is glutamine. Have
Yep.
you?
Yep.
So that's really, if I'm being honest, and again, don't I'm not a doctor, so don't take my
Yeah.
word for it, but like I had somebody tell me, hey, take high quantities of glutamine twice a day. And the days that I do that, because there's mornings where I wake up and I'm like sick.
Yep.
Or at least I feel very sick. I'm
Yeah.
not, nothing manifests, but I just feel like extreme inflammation in my stomach and in my gut.
Yep.
The nights that I drink, usually, two big scoops of glutamine with some, water and some Himalayan salt or something like that, or even in a Gatorade, as much sugar as that is. But I wake up the next morning not feeling so inflamed. And I guess it has something to do with like restoring some of the mucous membrane in your intestines and like the barrier, people
Yeah.
feel
It,
like
it
leaky
helps with
gut.
intestinal permeability.
Okay.
Yeah. So the leaky gut is, increased intestinal permeability where the toxins and bacteria can kind of leak into your system because of that. So the glutamine helps with that
Okay.
to kind of restore that gut lining.
Yeah. Doesn't seem like it's like a long-term fix. It seems like it's more of like a patch.
Yeah. If you
But
take it for a long time, though, yeah, it'll start to help a lot.
okay. I'm
Yeah.
gonna stick with it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I it's it's interesting. It's like just one of those things, you can't see it, you can't put your finger. And you mentioned it earlier, like the woo-woo aspect.
Yeah.
I've
It's,
had people that are like, "Oh, I've had an upset belly, get over it." I'm just like,
yeah. Or
you know,
people think it's in your head. I'm
yeah.
like, it's not in my head. Like, I am like sick to the point where I can't do anything.
Hmm.
Right. Like, I've gotten that a lot. I've gotten that a lot. People just think it's in my head. I'm like,
Hmm.
I promise you it's not in my head.
So I know you're not able to do a whole lot of working out right now,
Mhm.
but how has the quarantine been as far as somebody who's as active as you? I saw you had like a cool little adapter on one of the beams in your loft where you were doing like pull-ups, and then you're
Yeah.
like running the stairs, and then you're doing like a whole circuit. Is that been like,
Yeah.
is that the new norm, or is that, just to kind of fill time and space when needed?
Yeah, yeah. No, I will like randomly do workouts in here, and I have the little. I live in a loft, so I have these beams, as you can see. So I have this like rock climbing trainer attached to the beam. So I'll do like train. I'll do sessions in here. I have a bike, like a stationary bike. So I've made it work that way. Right now we aren't in like lockdown. We can still go to the gym. So I have the luxury of still going to the gym. Um, but yeah, I mean, I just got creative. I just did what I did. I used my body.
Yeah.
You can always do something. Like people are like, oh, I'm going to lose my gains. But it's like, slow down your movements, use your body, do tempo work. Like you can do something. Something's better than nothing.
Yeah. Are you familiar with Eric Leha at all?
No.
He's on Instagram. He goes by Primal Swolger. So
Okay.
it's a lot of like kettlebell stuff,
Okay.
body weight workouts. He's from Austin. He's one of the On It.
Okay. Got it.
And so, I talked with him early on in the pandemic, and we kind of touched on the ability at the time for people to be able to still keep their health and wellness up in this pandemic. And, without going into a thousand directions, more than anything, right? I literally have seen 100,000, that's being facetious, but like I've seen so many posts about masks and distancing and all great stuff. But I just think about, we've had 10, 11 months of this, and
I know.
the focus on nutrition, the focus on being active, taking, getting the right nutritional supplements, vitamins,
Right.
D3,
Yep.
all of those things. I would think if you're somebody who's not active at all and you're complaining and all upset and frantic, spend a few months and get yourself in shape, because I think you can probably have a much more profound effect on your body and your ability to fight something like COVID or any
Yep.
other virus off if you're just a healthy individual, right?
Completely agree. Yeah. Completely agree. I think too, like with the lockdowns, um, I mean, I don't know if like some places you can't walk outside, but people really underestimate the power of just walking
Hmm.
and like just moving your body that way. It's like walking is so good for you. So it's such a powerful tool. Um, so if you're like not able to go to the gym, like give yourself a non-negotiable of walking 2 times a day, 30-minute walks, like something like that. Get out in the sun. Like these are the things that are going to help you with your immune system. Um, yeah, being locked inside is, I don't agree with it, but
Yeah, no, we do, I guess, what we have to do. I want to be a good
yes, yeah,
citizen. I'm not here to cause anybody else any stress in their life
right.
and whatnot. But then I'm also like, okay, well, we're a year into this, and
I know.
I'm doing everything to keep myself healthy and well to the
Mhm.
best of my ability.
Yeah.
And at some point, it's like I was willing to wear the mask while the rest of you caught up, but like now we've had a year for everybody else to kind of get healthy, and you're
Right.
still asking me to live my life as if I eat at McDonald's every
I
day and don't
know.
work out. And
Yeah.
I had a guy, I'm friendly with this dude at the local gas station, and he's a little extreme with some of the stuff. And I go to I'm like, how many crazies came in here today? He tells me funny stories, and he said that he has somebody who comes in and buys cigarettes 3 or 4 times a week, and that asks him if he will put a pair of rubber gloves
Oh
on
my
to take the
gosh.
cigarettes off the wall and give them to him. And I'm just like, is he joking with you? And he's like, no, he's dead serious. And I'm like, okay, well, I don't know. I guess it's material to tell my friends
I know.
because
It makes no sense.
yeah. So just
The thing you posted on your story made me laugh because it's like the outside
oh
happening,
yeah.
the inside happening on the outside. So that's literally happening down the street from me right now. There's a restaurant and there's a big tent outside, and everyone's in the tent outside of the restaurant. I'm like, where's the logic here?
Mhm. Yeah. No,
Makes no sense.
I've yeah. I mean, I'm a little bit of a conspiracy theorist, or I'm at least willing to explore all the crazy
Me
ideas that are
too.
out there. I'm beyond where this is going. Whoever this 8-year-old child is running the simulation.
Yeah, I know.
I talked with a neuroscientist a while back named Randy Stout. Shout out Randy. His brother Warren got a phenomenal jujitsu and Muay Thai school here in Pittsburgh called Stout Academy, and they've
Yeah.
been they've been so gracious. They've both come on my show. I train with Warren, and I asked his brother, I'm like, hey, as a neuroscientist, somebody who studies the brain, what are the perspectives? And he blew my mind with what he told me, in that our brains actually work as if we are in a simulation, because we're drawing inferences all the time. And I'm going to butcher this, so if anybody's interested, go back and listen to the episode with Randy Stout. But he said, when we're looking at maybe, I'm looking out my window right now and there's a hill, I'm making assumptions about things that I can't really see. So I'm kind of my brain's already simulating reality. It's not, you're seeing memories, is the way he explained it to me.
Okay.
the way that your brain works. He's like, you're not actually seeing something. You're seeing something. It's coming through your optic nerve. It's then triggering memories,
Yeah,
and it's
from the
also, yeah, it's why a lot of times the memory isn't accurate, or we think we see things. And he's like, it's kind of a interesting perspective when somebody says, "Are we living in a reality?" He's like, I don't know if that's the right question. He's like, because our brains kind of are in a simulation
that makes
all the
sense.
time.
That's crazy.
Yeah. And I butchered that. So it's way more compelling the way
I
he,
listened to the clip of you guys talking. I need to go listen to the whole podcast.
yeah, he's an interesting cat. So
Yeah,
I hope to have him back on again and talk with him about a couple of other things, but
yeah, that's
yeah,
super interesting.
yeah. So what's next for you aside from all of this, continuous work on yourself? I mean, any big plans in the future, anything that people should be keeping their eyes open for?
Um, Honestly, I don't have anything really planned. Nothing huge right now. This health thing is really taking the lead, and so I can't do a whole lot with this. But just planning on continuing to build my business. I have actually I do have something in the works. It's a new business. I can't really like say what it's about, but it is targeting hunters, people who are out in the woods. um
Awesome.
it's got to do with like food and macros, so
Awesome.
it's gonna be exciting.
Oh, whenever you're ready to share more, let us know. We'll
I
certainly
will definitely.
put the word out there for you.
Mhm.
But no, it was awesome to have you on.
Yeah, I loved
And
it. Thank you so much.
certainly, definitely want to keep in touch, follow your journey on this whole gut thing. I'm kind of personally invested into how this all works out. I'm
Yep.
going to reach out to your coach as well.
Yep. Do it.
Interested in a couple of things there.
Yep.
And yeah, no, where can your social media, everything like that, where can people go and find you?
Yep. So it's just my name, Kristine Andali, and then my website is ka-nutrition.com.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Christine, thank you so much for coming on. I
Thank
appreciate it a lot.
you.